I sure hope not. We've been working on this at API. Catherine Robertson, our Vice President for Policy, is on that task force with Senator Ward, and we've been trying for over a year to get a grant to put together a program that we came up with that we think could really change the whole dynamic on the prison population. Over 60% of the inmates in Alabama prisons, regardless of race or gender, are high school dropouts. We've got the best distance learning program in the country. Our Access program is arguably the best in the nation. I sat down with Dr. Bice, like I say, over a year ago, and asked him about the viability of getting companies who are going to rotate out their laptops, replace their laptops, get them to wipe the hard drives, donate those to the state, and let's go into the prisons and enroll these prisoners, high school dropouts, or even if they're high school graduates, the ones who are eligible for parole, they're the ones who are going to get out, and say to them, you get your high school diploma. It's not a GED, it's a high school diploma, or you get an associate's degree or a vocational degree. Once you achieve that, you're immediately eligible for parole, subject to approval by the parole board. There's a number of ministries that are working in the prisons right now trying to help these people when they re-enter society. There's clothes closets where suits, guys, we donate our suits to help them dress, to how to do an interview, and then when they get out, they've got a support group that they're networked with. What's missing is this education component. This is how we could dramatically reduce our prison population in a way that makes sense, that would, I believe, have an incredibly low recidivism rate. And API has been trying to get funding for the report from local foundations, and no one's interested. And it's amazing to me because about 30% of the prisoners in Alabama prisons come from right around here. And if you look at the African American male population in the prisons, the dropout rate's probably 65–70%. So what we're saying is, okay, let's not have the federal government come in and force us to release people who are not ready to re-enter society. Let's help these men and women come out with employable skills, with interview skills, and with a support network out there that will help them re-enter society and get them back into the job market. Either they could go into college. Some of these get their high school diploma, they get out of prison, they could go to college, or they get an associate or even a vocational degree in crafts. They could go to work.
Can you do that fast enough to avoid federal action?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I think the fact that if we initiated this program, the federal government might give us the time to implement it and carry it out. And honestly, I think it could be a model for the rest of the country. But we've been pushing this, and it's going to get, even though we wanted the report to do the due diligence on it, to give legislators cover for doing this, because there's going to have to be some money appropriated. And we felt like if the Alabama Policy Institute came out and said this is what needs to be done, that there'd be a lot of legislators who wouldn't ordinarily vote for it that would. But I think we're at a point now where we need to do it anyway. So
obviously Cam Ward, but who else in the state is do you think is working toward these issues?
I think all of the legislators are focused on this. Now, I can't say specifically who will take the lead on it, but I mentioned Cam because he's the chair of the task force, and Catherine Robertson from API is on that task force. So, and it's a big deal with Cam, and it's a big deal with some of the judges. I've talked with former Supreme Court justices. I've talked with local judges, and they all get it.
So do you think with API's leadership on it, so I'm a little unclear, you're going to put out the report, or?
We're working on it right now, even though we don't have the funding for it. We won't be able to get it out as wide a distribution as we would like, but we're doing the data gathering and to get something out before this next session, which won't begin until March. But you asked me, what we would do about, and then we also think that we need to revisit sentencing, and we've got a number of people who are in prison who shouldn't be in prison. They ought to be in a different facility or in a different program. So that's not a congressional issue, but
I think the federal government is going to have to intervene if something is not done. We are a tremendously overcrowded system. I think that we can begin to do things, and we have to do things. What we don't want to do, and what Alabama shouldn't do, is wait until the federal government has to intervene, which has been the pattern in the past. I would much prefer that we handle this on our own. But the problem is not going to go away. This is a nationwide problem. We have way too many people in prison, particularly for nonviolent crimes. We're paying a fortune to warehouse these people, where they only really are learning bad habits when they get out. And so I think the state has got to step forward and do something. If we don't, there is no doubt that the federal government's going to step in, and then they will be solving our problem, which we should step up and solve ourselves.
What would you suggest the state do?
I think one thing they could do is to begin to work on releasing those people who really should not be in prison for the long periods of time that they've been sentenced for, because, for example, the state of Mississippi has done an excellent job. They've done an excellent job of reducing their prison population. These are people basically for nonviolent drug crimes that triggered, because of mandatory sentencing, very, very long sentences. What they've done is been very careful. They've gone back. The recidivist rate, those returning to the prison, has only been about 11%. It's been 11%. Now, you don't like that, and you don't want to release people that are going to go right back to prison. But they have been very successful as that. That's where we could start. Now, I don't think that is going to answer the problem. It'll certainly be a first step, and a step that would not cost that much money. But probably at some point we're going to have to start putting even more money in the prisons. If we're going to insist on putting people in jail, we have to put them in jail under humane conditions. And so that is going to be expensive. But I do think there's plenty of room to reduce the prison population without any danger to the community.